Hello and welcome to session 1 of our workshop. In this session, we will cover 3 key things. Number 1, we're going to look at defining the basics or going back to the basics of defining teaching and learning. We're also going to look at competencies, outcomes, and objectives. Let me start with the first part of looking at what is teaching. Now, teaching is defined as a set of activities within the context of a learning environment that make learning possible. The learning environment can be an online learning platform, as in the case of what we are doing, which is e-learning, or in the context of a classroom environment, as in the case of face-to-face teaching. What is key is that there are a set of activities that the teacher plans out that make learning possible. So that is creating the link between teaching and learning. So the link between teaching and learning is a set of activities that make learning possible. So it creates that particular link. Now, for learning to be able to take place, we need to define the competencies, the objectives, and the outcomes. Now, let's look at competencies. A competency or competency is a general statement detailing the desired knowledge and skills of students or a student graduating from a given program. So competencies are at the program level. That is, if it is Bachelor of Computer Science, there are a set of competencies that have been defined or have been stated or have been listed for that particular person to satisfy the award for the degree of Bachelor of Computer Science. The same with Bachelor of Education, Bachelor of Arts. So competencies are at the program level. So for the course you are developing, you need to identify the competencies at the program level. Now, when you come down, you need to truncate it or truncate these competencies down to the course level, the course you are developing. Now, an objective is a very general statement about the larger goals of the course you are developing. Now, at the course level, you also need to identify the objectives. Then, we are going to be breaking down our course into topics. Now, for each topic, there are certain outcomes. So an outcome is a very specific statement that describes exactly what a student will be able to do in some measurable way. So a competency may have several specific learning outcomes. So a course typically contains more outcomes than competencies. So here, within the course level, we'll be focusing more on the learning outcomes for each of the topics. This is going to be reflected in the course development template that is going to be attached. So the course development template will have outcomes at the topic level. Now, these outcomes are very important because they are the ones that are going to guide you as you're developing the learning activities and the assessment at the topic level. So for each topic, we are going to have an introduction. We are going to have the outcomes of the topic. We are going to have learning materials or resources that you're going to attach. And then we are also going to have assessment and learning activities. So these are the components that will inform a topic within a course. So objectives, competencies, and outcomes can be written to describe the learning gained by students in individual courses or for the program as a whole. That is at the program level. The main distinction between objectives and competencies are at the level at which they operate. So competencies are at the program level, while objectives are at the course level. Then outcomes are at the topic level. Now, when writing learning outcomes, the key to writing a truly accessible learning outcome or an outcome that can be assessed is to use language that describes learning in such a way that it can be measured. So to state that a student will understand or know some fact or topic is good objective, but it is not easily measurable. So because each topic we are going to be focusing on some form of assessment. You're going to look at the assessment, the various types of assessment. That is from teacher marked assessment, peer marked assessment, and computer marked assessment, as well as self-assessment. So you're going to look at those particular levels of assessment in a later session. But in this session, I want us, when we are stating the learning outcomes for each topic, we need to ensure that the learning outcomes are measurable. A good starting point for writing learning outcomes is using the Bloom's taxonomy. This is illustrated on the screen. So the verbs associated with each level of Bloom's taxonomy are a good starting point for writing learning outcomes at each level. So the first level is the knowledge level. This is the basic level, and this is the level at which learners are able to remember information. So mostly this is best at the introductory topics, when you're introducing the topic. So you're introducing the course, so introducing the terms, so they're able to define the common terms, right? So they just simply need to be able to remember. Okay, some of the key verbs you can use is define, identify, label, state, list, match. The next level is the comprehension level, being able to comprehend, that is, explain the meaning of information. So here a learner can be able to describe, paraphrase, summarize, estimate, and so on and so forth. Then the third level is application. This is where a learner is able to use abstracts in concrete situation. Okay, so they're able to actualize certain tasks. So they're able to determine, they're able to chart, they're able to implement, prepare, solve, use, develop. So these are some of the verbs you can use at application level. Then there is the fourth level, which is analysis. This is a learner being able to break down a whole into components. So this is a place where a learner can be able to point out. You can give them a scenario and they can point out something. They can differentiate between two scenarios. Right? This is very good, for example, when you're using learning activities such as case studies, where you want the learners to point out something, to differentiate between two scenarios, to distinguish the difference between one thing and another, to discriminate, to compare. So those are some of the verbs you can use. Then the fifth level is synthesis. This is where the learner is able to put parts together to form a new and integrated whole. So here, they are able now to create something new, to design, to plan, to organize, to generate, to write. For example, in architecture, once you've taught the learner certain principles, they should be able to design something. Right? In planning, when you have taught them certain principles of planning a city, so they can be able to simulate and come up with a plan of how a city would look like. Organize something. Generate, for example. You're teaching programming. They should be able to generate a system. Okay. Evaluation. That is making judgment about the merits of ideas, materials, and phenomena. That is, you can use verbs such as appraise, critique, judge, weigh, evaluate, and select. So, a good learning outcome will have the following characteristic. It will have a verb that identifies what action the student should be able to perform. It will also denote the conditions under which the student should demonstrate the mastery. Then finally, a learning outcome oftenly contains some element of how the mastery will be evaluated, that is, assessment. So, for our task in this topic, you're going to be provided with the course development template. You're expected to fill in the information in the course development template for the course you're developing. Then you're going to upload the Word version of your template in the session discussion forum. The purpose for this is so that we can peer evaluate each other's template for completeness, of course, but also we want to look at how you have stated the learning outcomes for your topic, how you have defined the learning activities, and then is there a clear link between the learning outcomes, the learning activities, and the assessment? Is there a level of assessment? I know the concept of assessment will be clearer when we shall have reached the third session of this workshop. So thank you so much.